Good morning. This is Lisa Hardy with RE/MAX Victory and Affiliates, and this is Brenden Baker. He's joining me today with he's a financial representative with Fortress Financial and Wealth Management. So thanks for your time today, Brenden.
Well, thanks for having me, Lisa.
A little bit about Fortress Financial is a strategic wealth advantage office that provides comprehensive services in planning, protection, investing, and wealth management. They're a member of the Strategic Wealth Advantage, and they hold a A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Brenden will be sharing some key insights addressing common financial myths for real estate agents. And thank you again for your time. All right, so let's get into the myths. So the first myth is, my income is too inconsistent for planning long-term.
Well, and you hear it all the time in the business planning space. I, for myself, business owner, our incomes, they both fluctuate. I always say, well, I want to contribute when I have the better months. Well, what happens when there are slow months? That's where a big strategic talking point is having a comprehensive plan for the ups and the downs. You can't just bank on just saying, I want to contribute to my plan when I have the good producing months, because in real estate, well enough, housing market fluctuations, contract issues. There's a lot of variables in that plan. So when the income does come in, having that structured for the ups and downs is the biggest talking point, just because the last thing you want to do is just be reliant on that next commission.
Right.
There are vehicles to venture out towards to make the best use of our commissions.
Well, and when those months come that aren't as productive as others, at least it's something contributing, and a little bit here and a little bit there eventually adds up.
Compounding interest is one crazy tool.
Yep.
And it's just like with houses, how they appreciate in value. They're just sitting there. They're not doing any work.
Right.
They can go hand in hand with compounding interest. And with strategic planning on that front, you're also taking in tax planning as well.
Right. Okay. All right. Myth number 2. I'll just save more when I have a big year.
Well, I think we all say that. But in this day and age, the worst thing for a lot of people is lifestyle inflation. Nothing is spoken upon in the inflation report, CPI index, on any of those fronts on lifestyle inflation. Social media is a great tool for all real estate professionals, and I think I can improve a little bit myself as well. But social media is, I always like to say, the comparison is the thief of joy. And that's where a lot of people, I say, well, if I have a good producing month, I need to get this to compare myself to my neighbor. Well, that's not the case, because when you open that door, you might not realize the full picture. So I always like to say we have to stay humble in the present day and make the best use of our dollars coming in on that front, just because social media is a big talking point in our day and age. What also comes into that is lifestyle. And there could be 6-figure income earners that are paycheck to paycheck just by some bad habits that could have been instilled.
That's so true. There's a lot of people that, sometimes we go in a house and you expect the house to be just exquisite inside, and you notice that it's not. They have a big house, but they don't have the money to invest in making it look nice on the inside because they just spent all their money on a big house and now they're house poor. So, very true. All right, third myth. Real estate commissions are my retirement plan.
Well, I hope not, just because this Uncle Sam, our good friend Uncle Sam, he's always watching every single commission that a real estate professional makes. And then when it comes tax season, he says, great work, Lisa. Here's my cut, and here's when I want it on this date. Real estate commissions do not have to be the retirement plan. You do not have to work until 65, 70 just because you need that real estate commission. When you use your real estate commissions earlier rather than later, those commissions can then lead into your retirement plan. Then before you know it, you can then just transition real estate as to a hobby because you enjoy it instead of saying, I need this for retirement.
Right. And you work with real estate agents.
I do.
Yes.
And the biggest talking point is allocating our capital, because you could have a really good commission or a really good month, say at least, and the next month could be slow. But it's nice having someone in your corner to where you can have those conversations of saying, well, if I did this, what's this option look like? a lot of people, they don't have that resource. So it's nice to have an extra talking point and also another set of eyes, because we can all have bias towards our own finances.
Right. Very true. All right, number 4, I don't need a formal retirement plan. I'll just keep selling. This one kind of ties into the last one.
Yeah, so I mean, let alone a lot of people when it comes to retirement. I know my dad's a funny example. He's like, I could never retire because my biggest fear is being bored. Now, if you're a realtor, a real estate professional, and you're working in your 70s just because you enjoy what you do, I mean, at the end of the day, we can't just be bored at the end of the day, and, time keeps going by. But kind of going back to the last question, we don't have to work till we're 70 to fund our retirement from that point. Because I know in real estate, benefits is a very foreign subject, but there are vehicles out there, but it all comes back to really having those conversations. Most people, they'd love to have those conversations, but across all brokerages and even amongst Ohio as a whole, benefits is very foreign. But there are implementations and vehicles that individual agents, groups, and brokerages can venture out towards. It's just having the conversation to start. But if someone came up to me and said, I'm going to work till I'm 70 or 75 just because I'm a realtor, I'd say that's absolutely false. Let's have a conversation, and I'll open that door as to how that's not the case and how you can really flourish when it comes that time.
Perfect. All right, number 5. Taxes are just something I deal with at the end of the year.
Well, that kind of goes hand in hand on, if you just say, my retirements are my commissions, well, you want your retirement at the hands of the federal government? I always say taxes are out of our control. That's our good friends in Washington. They control that. So we want to take advantage of the tax codes granted to us and making sure our dollars are working for us and not our good friend Uncle Sam. Because if we're reliant upon our commissions for retirement income, well, guess what? You're opening the door to taxes, eating up your retirement. And then that just comes down to having the conversations, because with a lot of real estate professionals, we're all operating our own business. And with that, you can then make uses of your business to not only grow assets, but also in the most tax efficient way. But we don't want our sole income to be justified as a retirement income. And then with that, you're looping in retirement income with taxes.
Right.
And the last thing I want, and especially come year end, is getting an abrupt phone call and saying, I have an unexpected tax bill. I have to close on 2 properties within the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That does not ever have to be the case. It all just comes down to strategic talking points throughout the entire year. I'll have conversations and stay in the loop with CPAs saying, how are we, let alone filing, but also comes back to how are we bookkeeping? It's a simple question I'll ask, like, how's our bookkeeping? At a bare minimum, are we separating our personal from our business? And if that is not answered, I'm going to say, okay, after our phone call, we're starting that today. We need to keep everything segmented. And then if it's manual bookkeeping, I applaud people, but I personally use QuickBooks. Having bookkeeping is just going to keep everything organized to a T, but it also helps mightily when it comes tax planning time.
Plus, if you pay for all of your taxes at year end, there's going to be penalties, right?
Yep.
If you're not paying them quarterly.
Yeah.
Right.
And it also comes into the unexpected tax bill. And if it's not monitored and you're just, producing, you don't even have an outlook towards that. And then when it comes filing time, the IRS is going to say, this is how much you owe. And when that's the case, that's how much you owe.
Yep. And sometimes that can be a lot all at once. All right, number 6, I reinvest everything back into my business. That's enough.
Well, I always say you got to have buckets towards the finances coming in. And with my business in itself, I am reinvesting into that. Whether it's business and tax planning, you got to have a bucket here. But I always say you got to have a middleman in some way, shape, and form. You got business reinvesting in taxes, saving, investing, and then lifestyle. And then any expenditures bill pay, because I want people to still have their fun. We're not all here to be robots. If you want to take a trip, go take a trip. But I don't want that trip to then bleed into potential tax planning saying, I just went on a vacation, when that could have went towards my upcoming tax bill. So all these questions in itself, they all kind of coincide on top of one another. But that's when having a full complement of having a conversation, a plan, it all comes together in unison. I always say, I'm not here to play checkers. I'm not here to say, here's what you could do today, and that could benefit you. I'm playing chess. In chess, you have the whole entire chessboard. Comprehensive plans, you've got protection overview, cash flow, tax planning, retirement planning, asset protection. There's a lot of talking points that come into it. But we also have to first diversify our dollars. Reinvesting in the business, it's great. Putting those to best use for the business, and if it's tax planning, that's great. But 100% of it, that does not have to be the case. Diversifying to saving and investing, and then you have your lifestyle, and then your bill pay. But when you have your buckets established and a split amongst 100%, it's going to give us a lot of peace and clarity.
Yeah, and it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 7, insurance is just an expense.
Well, I mean, all clients, when they're showing houses, the state they operate, you have to have car insurance. When you buy a house, you're not going to get approved for any mortgage. You don't have home insurance. It goes hand in hand for all professionals. There's a lot of liability and risk for business owners. We want to optimize our personal, just for all of our clients. We want to make sure our personal home and auto is optimized. There's larger assets outstanding. We speak on umbrellas. Because in this day and age, if you received a plaintiff in some way, shape, and form, whether it was an auto accident or home liability, the question I always ask is, if you were suing someone, how much would you want to sue them for? Everyone sits and they're like, well, everything. That's most likely the case. When attorneys take care of their clients, they're going to do everything that they can to best replicate their clients. So when it comes to liability and protection, on our balance sheet in our business, protection is number 1. Personal liability, whether it's property and casualty, home, auto, umbrellas, estate planning, a legacy descendants. There's tax implications on that, but real estate professionals know well enough with probate. We want to make sure we speak on that. Income protection. Realtors in itself, commissions, and just properties closing, that's where the pay comes in. But what if we're unable to work for an extended period of time? That just goes off the table. Having our income protected, and then with family as well, we want to make sure that if there's insurable interest, and looking in life coverage as well. So there are a lot of things on the balance sheet that need to be protected from top to bottom. And it's the great saying of, well, I don't know if I need it, but a lot of people, when you really need it and you don't have it, that's when a lot of bad things come to the table.
That's true, because you never know what's going to happen in life. So that's very true. All right, number 8. I'll invest once I have more time to understand it.
Well, I would say the earlier you start, the better. Even if you're 25, 30, 35, you got to start some way, shape, and form. In the work that I do as well, education is a big thing. I'm not assuming anyone in the world needs any help or assistance, but when we go through conversations on macroeconomics, history of markets, it's a lot of educational talking pieces because there's a lot of information that I can bestow, but I also want people to have a peace of mind understanding of how those vehicles work. But if you keep pushing that along, that's just less and less time for that to compound and grow. I say retirement income, it charges reverse interest. Every day you go without adding money to your retirement accounts is a day that you lose income, and that's money you'll need someday and won't have in the future. So I always say the best time to start is now.
Right. Just get started.
Even if you might feel as if you're a deer in headlights, having the conversation, that goes the farthest.
Right. And having a conversation with somebody like Brenden gets it started. Whether you completely understand it or not, they understand it. So you can get somebody started and then get them started and then start educating them too. Okay. All right. Number 9, my brokerage or team will help me with financial planning.
Well, it's great to have those conversations, but the question I always ask is, how consistent are they? Do they meet with you quarterly? Do they do assessments on production? And when you have a great month or a great quarter, are they telling you how to best allocate that capital? Brokerages have a ton of resources in regards with training, but most of the time it's more towards sales and production. You have more sales and production, that's great. Larger production means more income, but they're most likely not talking about how to best harness that income to grow for when, if they career change, if they step away from real estate, or if they want to retire in that front. I say, you don't have to work till you're 70. If you want to work because you enjoy it, that's another thing. but you should have the opportunity to work because you enjoy it, not because you have to.
Because you have to, right.
In most brokerages in itself, it's more focused on training and production, and that's kind of the end-all be-all. I say benefits and those talking points, they are available. It's just the conversation is not being advanced further upon.
Okay.
And I know real estate professionals in itself, it's been a larger network of mine, but I also think it's very misrepresented when it comes to these talking points. And the last thing that I want is people coming to me saying, I'm just working till I'm 70. I said, no, that's absolutely not the case. Because let alone real estate professionals and even realtors, there can be a lot of income that comes in. But the income that comes in, most of the time, it's put out in a lawnmower approach. When you're cutting the grass and you're going through a lawnmower, the grass and shrapnel gets spread everywhere. That's most likely the approach. In most brokerages, they're not having those conversations on how to have less of the lawnmower approach and more of the bucket approach.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. Last one. I'm doing well. I don't need to optimize anything. So what's your take on that?
I always like to essentially go back and say, okay, put the ball in their court. And this is someone we're buying a house as well. It's like, well, here's what I want. Here's what I have. It's like, well, you got approved for this loan, but you're saying this. It's like, it's not on the table. I will ask people, say, tell me everything that's going on. And most of the time when you put the ball back in their court and they start talking, like, well, maybe I could look into something this. Because I, by all means, on my own personal plan, I spoke with my business partner. Like, well, you should know everything that you're doing. You're the professional. I have bias, believe it or not. And we did make some changes on that front. But I, by all means, am not perfect, but I will always hear out additional advice to better my situation. And I always like to say when people say, I think everything's going well, I want to hear it out. I want to say, tell me everything you've got. And, on the protection front, if something bad were to happen to you, you're going to be liability sheltered if you were to be sued. What does that talking point look like? How are you optimizing your cash flow? How are you tax planning? There's a lot of follow-up questions towards that. And a lot of people, just to have the conversation, it can go a very long way. But there are some people that they want to do it their way. And, I'm not here to push anyone's hand. I want to spread value and insight. But I want to hear what people are doing. Because I think there are lots of holes, or I guess I can dot every I and cross every T. But I want to know first and foremost what people are doing to hear their perspective and then loop in the additional perspective on my end.
Yeah, so, no matter if you're 30 or you're 50, if you haven't started yet, the idea is get started. Because even if you're in your 50s, you can still get started and start planning for the next 15 years or so.
And even amongst that, you could potentially, with parents or grandparents or however on that front, you could have an inheritance that could be coming in. And that goes heavy with estate planning. With our clientele, say at least, we grow family trees. So we're grandparents, their children. That goes hand in hand with the estate plan. There's a lot of tax implications with estate planning if it's not optimized that could then be passed down to generations and could be, I wouldn't want to say a burden, but it's an extra piece to their puzzle that they did not expect. So whether it could be an inheritance, or if you're just getting started now, you could have children. You could have charitable organizations that you want to pass some of your assets towards. So there are a lot of talking pieces in regards to whether you're starting today, you could have an inheritance from parents that's going to be coming towards you. How are you going to have that managed in conversations forward upon? And then for all people, I'd say if you're fresh out of college, you're starting your first position, or if you're 45, if you think it's too late to have the conversation today, we can always advance it. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, start somewhere and sometime. So what I want you to let people know is if someone is interested in speaking with you and Fortress, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get started?
So I always say lots of my clientele come from existing clients just as we grow organically. A lot of it's through word of mouth. We've got our Facebook page, our Google page, but I always say whether people get connected to me through my email or contact, as long as they can name drop where they got connected from, that'll help me connect the dots. But if they want to have a conversation, we have a philosophy meeting, and that is an overview, background myself, our firm, and our planning practice, and really opens up the floor to whoever I'm speaking to on any other questions or concerns that they might have. And then from there, there's open dialogue. I answer the questions that they have, but then I'll highlight the planning process, and if all is a good fit, then those next steps can be taken forward.
Okay.
So if people agree to move forward in drafting a high-fidelity plan, we always highlight our philosophy. So our planning process, it's very concrete. If you come in with $10 million or you got your first college position making $50,000, it does not teeter to any individual. The plans in itself do, just based off the income, career, family, everything in between. But we highlight our philosophy first and foremost. Back on myself and our firm, and opens up for further questions for whoever I'm speaking to on any of their concerns and what they could possibly do to better optimize their current or future planning. All's well they want to move forward, we go into data collection. So we believe on full data gathering. We do not render any advice until we get the full picture on the balance sheet. Someone were to call and say, all right, Brenden, I got $50,000 bonus. What should I do with it? If I didn't know them previously, I'd say, I've got no idea. How do I know if there's a $10,000 collection on your name? So we go with full data collection. And once that's completed, go into the protection analysis, a deep dive on any of those potential threats or perils to the balance sheet. Review property and casualty, umbrellas, income protection, legacy planning, and estate planning. We're going to review every single one of those talking points to better optimize our balance sheet, because if it's not 10, 15 years from now, if we didn't optimize that, a simple incident could set us back on all the work that we had done. So we preach on optimizing protection, protecting today's for better tomorrows. So from defense to offense, we go into cash flow analysis, macroeconomics, history markets, getting a risk tolerance assessment, and then the protection analysis and cash flow are heavy info. It's where it all gets brought together in our final mean implementation review. It's where the rubber meets the road and plans put into action. Our plans could be a little bit more methodical than most, but the best plans, they shouldn't be rushed. There's a lot of information we go over, and our clients get educated throughout that process as well. And then by time where the rubber meets the road, they're ready to get going. But then from that point forward, whether there's business planning on top of that, a lot of real estate professionals, the talking point is, I have these commissions. How do I best optimize it? I say there's personal planning, then there's business planning. There's always going to be two roads. We always optimize the personal planning, but then that can always segment into business planning. Seeing benefits on a solo practice or even throughout a brokerage, whether it be solo 401ks, deferred comp plans. There are ways to optimize our business dollars to come in to have a growing asset, but also lessening our marginal tax bill. But we always optimize our personal, and then that can bleed into business, and then the business will stem from there.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I mean, as you can see, Brenden is well-trained, and Fortress it's a great company that can really manage your wealth. So if you would like more information, just send a message over. There'll be information in the post to contact either myself or Brenden, and we would love to hear from you. So thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. And Brenden, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.